Have you ever looked in the mirror and realized you couldn't remember the last time you actually felt something? Not happiness, not sadness, not even anger, just nothing. A flat, gray static where your inner life used to be. That was me, and I want to tell you exactly how I found my way back. It started so quietly, I almost didn't notice it happening. One day I was laughing at a joke, crying at a movie, feeling the full spectrum, and then, slowly, the volume just turned down. I remember the exact moment I knew something was wrong. I was standing at my father's birthday party, surrounded by people I loved, and I felt absolutely nothing. Not warmth, not joy, not even mild interest. I smiled because I knew I was supposed to, and that gap between the performance and the reality was the loneliest feeling I have ever known. Numbness doesn't announce itself like grief does. It sneaks in like fog, gradual, gray, and before you know it, you can't see your hands in front of your face. Doctors and therapists have a word for this state. They call it emotional blunting or dissociation, but those clinical labels don't capture what it actually feels like to live inside it. It feels like watching your own life through frosted glass, present in body but absent in soul. And here's what makes it so insidious. Numbness often arrives as a gift. After trauma, after heartbreak, after prolonged stress, the nervous system essentially says, this is too much, and it wraps you in cotton wool to protect you. The problem is that the cotton wool doesn't discriminate. It muffles the pain, yes, but it also smothers the joy. Research from the American Psychological Association suggests that emotional numbing affects tens of millions of people, often as a symptom of depression, anxiety, or post-traumatic stress. But here's the stat that floored me. Nearly 60% of people who experience it never seek help because they don't recognize it as a problem. They just think they've become a calmer, less dramatic version of themselves. I was one of those 60% for almost 3 years. 3 years of going through the motions, of ticking boxes, of being technically alive, but experientially absent. The philosopher Albert Camus wrote about the absurd this notion that we search desperately for meaning in a world that offers none. And when I first read that, during my numb years, I thought he was describing my breakfast routine. Every day had the same texture, flat, functional, forgettable. So what finally cracked it? I want to walk you through the exact milestones that pulled me out, because I think they'll surprise you. They weren't grand epiphanies or dramatic interventions. They were small, specific, almost embarrassingly ordinary moments. The first crack came on a Tuesday afternoon in early spring when I stepped outside and the wind hit my face, really hit it, and for one single second, I felt the cold. Not metaphorically, physically. And something in me went, oh, there you are. That tiny sensory moment was the first signal in months that I was still inside my own body. The body, it turns out, is often the first door back. When the mind goes numb, the nervous system can still be reached through sensation, through temperature, texture, movement, sound. This is why somatic therapy has exploded in popularity over the last decade, because it bypasses the locked front door of the intellect and sneaks in through the kitchen window of physical experience. My therapist at the time, a quiet, precise woman who spoke like she was choosing every word from a very limited budget, told me something I've never forgotten. She said, "You don't think your way back to feeling. You feel your way back to feeling." I honestly didn't know what that meant for about 6 months. And then one day, I did. The second milestone was music specifically, an old song I hadn't heard since I was 17 years old. I was driving, it came on shuffle, and before my brain could analyze it, my eyes were full of tears. Not sad tears, just tears. The kind that come when something true touches something true. That was a second crack in the wall. Music works on the brain at a level that bypasses conscious processing entirely. Neuroscientist Stefan Kolsch at the University of Bergen has shown that music activates the limbic system, the emotional core of the brain, even in people who are cognitively suppressing their emotions. In other words, music doesn't ask permission, it just walks in. The third milestone was harder and took much longer, and it involved telling the truth. Not big dramatic truth, small daily truth. Admitting to a friend that I was struggling instead of saying, "I'm fine." Admitting to myself in a journal that I was lonely. These micro-confessions of reality began to poke holes in the numbness from the inside. Vulnerability researcher Brené Brown has spent decades documenting what she calls the vulnerability paradox. The thing we most want to hide is the very thing that connects us to other people. When I started being even 10% more honest about my internal state, something shifted. People started responding differently. They leaned in instead of moving on. Now, I want to address something important directly, because I know some of you watching this are in the thick of it right now, and I don't want to make this sound easier than it is. Coming back from numbness is not linear. It is not a clean upward trajectory. It is more like a faulty light switch. Some days the light comes on fully, some days it flickers, and some days you flip it 100 times and nothing happens. There's also a particular trap I want to warn you about, and I call it the proof of progress trap. You have one good feeling day, and you decide you're healed. So you stop doing the things that created that good day. You stop journaling, stop therapy, stop the walks, stop the honesty, and within 2 weeks, the fog is back and twice as thick. Consistency isn't glamorous, but it is everything. Psychologist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl wrote that between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space lies our freedom. What I've come to understand is that numbness is what happens when that space collapses entirely, when you stop experiencing stimulus as meaningful and response as possible. Rebuilding that space is the whole work. The fourth major milestone for me was physical movement, specifically not exercise in the achievement-oriented gym sense, but movement for its own sake. I started walking without headphones. I started noticing things, a cracked pavement, a dog watching me from a window, the specific sound rain makes on different surfaces. Attention, I discovered, is a prerequisite for feeling. This is backed by substantial research. Mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, which integrates attention training with emotional regulation, has been shown in multiple peer-reviewed studies to reduce relapse rates in depression by up to 40% in participants with 3 or more previous episodes. Attention is not passive, it is an active invitation to reality. The fifth milestone, and perhaps the most powerful, was grief. Real, ugly, ugly grief that I had been carrying sealed in a box for years. A therapist helped me open that box carefully, slowly, with support, and what I found inside wasn't just pain. Underneath the pain was love. Underneath the love was me. That was the day I realized that numbness hadn't protected me from my grief. It had just kept me from the love that was sitting right next to it. Here is what I want you to understand about the journey back to feeling it is not a journey toward happiness. I know that's counterintuitive, but stay with me. It is a journey toward aliveness. Sometimes aliveness is joyful. Sometimes it is heartbreaking. Sometimes it is boring in a rich, textured way that feels nothing like the flat boredom of numbness. All of it is better than the alternative. If you are stuck in numbness right now, here is my honest, practical advice. Start with the body, not the mind. Take a cold shower, go for a walk without your phone, cook something with your hands, and pay attention to every step. These aren't cliches, they are on-ramps back to the physical reality that emotion runs through. You cannot shortcut this by thinking harder about your feelings. Second piece of advice, lower the stakes dramatically. People often try to feel something big, love, purpose, transcendence, before they've reconnected with small sensations. That's like trying to run before you can stand. Start with the small stuff. The taste of your morning coffee, the weight of a blanket, the specific blue of the sky at 4 in the afternoon. These small anchors are where the path back begins. Third, and this is the advice most people resist, tell one person the truth. Not everything, not your whole history, just something real. Something you would normally smooth over with, "I'm fine, watch what happens." More often than not, the person you tell will lean in, not away. And that lean, that tiny gesture of another human being moving toward your reality is one of the most powerful reactivation signals I know. Here's a truth that took me a long time to accept. Some people around you will be more comfortable with your numbness than your aliveness. Numbness is quiet. It doesn't ask for anything. It doesn't challenge the dynamic. When you start feeling again, you start having preferences, boundaries, opinions, needs, and that can be disruptive to systems that were built around your absence. This is not a reason to stay numb. It is a reason to choose your relationships carefully as you come back. The broader psychological pattern here is well-documented trauma, chronic stress, and prolonged suppression of emotion physically reshape neural pathways over time, creating what researchers call emotional regulatory habits that default to suppression. But neuroplasticity, the brain's capacity to rewire itself, means this is reversible. Not quickly, not effortlessly, but genuinely, substantively reversible. I want to zoom out for a moment and say something big picture, because I think numbness is not just an individual crisis, it is a cultural one. We live in a world that rewards productivity over presence, performance over authenticity, and output over inner experience. The logical conclusion of a culture like that is millions of people walking around technically functional and experientially hollow.